Hey Trippers, my guest today is Sheila Willis. Sheila's from Smith, Alberta. She was a housewife and a mother for about 50 years. And when the kids all moved out, she found herself with a lot of free time on her hands and she discovered a passion for history. So, in I guess just over the last 10 years, she lives in her 60s now. Uh, Sheila's written a series of books on the history of lesser slave lakes in Alberta. She's also developed an app called Traveling On app where people can use the app, and it's kind of like a Google map, but for heritage and history and local businesses. So basically, you open the app, and as you're traveling, you can follow different, like kind of like geocaching, different set points about Alberta's history, and you can see what local businesses are around and what they have to offer. So very cool app that she came up with, and she's actually won some awards for both her writing and for her app. Sheila also, well, she shared a bunch of stories with us, but she also talks about her post-concussion syndrome that she has from when she was struck in the head by a baseball bat in her 20s. And she didn't realize that she had this condition until much later in life when she was finally diagnosed by a physician. So Sheila's got a lot of interesting things to talk about. She's a very animated and fun person to talk to. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Sheila Willis. Balance, drop the beat. Welcome to Tripping Through Transformation. I'm your host, Guillaume Poirier, and I'm inviting you on a journey that will expand your outlook on life.
Balance makes it bang.
Join me as we delve into the realms of mental health, resilience, personal growth, community, and alternative healing. Through personal narratives and expert insights, we'll explore the transformative power of shared stories. Get ready to escape from narrow perceptions and dive into a world of diverse perspectives. There you go, Sheila. Welcome to Tripping Through Transformation. How are you doing?
I am excellent, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Still getting over a bit of a cold, but doing a lot
Yeah.
better these days. Yeah. You were just telling me you're having a great day today. A very positive outlook on life.
Oh, I lost you
Oh, did you lose my signal?
briefly.
And I'm back.
You're back.
Okay. Well, we'll cut that out. We can edit that out. But yeah, as I was saying, we were talking earlier. You said you're having a great day. You seem like a very positive person, very good outlook on life. Um, you're telling me you're a historian. You've written some books, won some awards, and you've developed this app, Traveling On Tourism. There, we're gonna.
Yeah.
I want to hear about everything, and I want to hear a little bit about what it's like to live on an acreage and having to fend for yourself and all that. So, as a historian, I assume you got lots of stories. I'm looking
Oh, yeah.
forward to hearing some. So yeah, let's talk about well, where do you want to get started?
Well, how about we kind of start at the beginning? Because I didn't start any of these projects until I was over 50.
Okay.
Like I was a stay-at-home mom,
Yeah.
and I've always had it kind of is genetic. It runs in my family. So when my kids left home, I was searching for something to do, and it was actually my father-in-law that got me involved in history. It was actually
Okay.
my father-in-law that got me involved in history. Um, he was born in 1916 and was the first family in our area in Hondu, and started talking about the steamboats that went by like a mile from my house, German prisoner of war camps at a lake that's now a provincial park up here, the Voyageurs, the former town of Mirror Landing, like the list goes on and on. Oh, and our yellow bridge in Smith, Alberta was built by the US Army Corps of Engineers in 1944, I believe it was.
Yeah.
So, like, huge rich history in my area, and I thought, there's got to be a way we can turn that history into tourism opportunities to bring people to our lovely little community that you used to have to go to get anywhere in northern Alberta. And now we're 10 and a half kilometers or 15 kilometers off the beaten trail. So
Yeah.
lots of different things that happened here. So I do you know what geocaching is?
Oh, I love geocaching. Yeah. I
Okay.
do. Yeah.
Geocaching. I created Alberta's very first geocaching tour in 2014.
Oh, okay.
And I did
Geocaching.
it with, it was our centennial year. And I wrote 100 historical stories and went to different places around the area and did a geocaching tour. So since 2014, I'm still getting people coming to find those caches today.
Wow.
I
And
call
is
that
there,
successful.
yeah. So is there an app associating through that? Because I know there's different geocaching apps, but do you have like an app for that for your caches specifically?
It's geocaching.com. It's on the
Okay.
regular geocaching app
Yeah, yeah.
or web. Yeah,
And you've hidden these caches all throughout Alberta, or where have you stashed those?
right around Smith, Alberta, where I live. And I've been
Smith.
reducing them. Yeah. Do you know where Smith, Alberta is?
Not off the top of my head, no.
No, a lot of people don't because we're only 178 people here. And it might be 276, depending on which census I'm remembering, because I do have a brain injury. So, yeah, details sometimes escape me. Um, we're about 2 hours north of Edmonton. So we are northern Alberta. And if you
Okay.
were looking on a map, you might see Slave Lake, Westlock, and Athabasca. We're almost
Yeah.
dead center triangle.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
familiar with Athabasca. I mean, I was in Fort McMurray. I would drive to Edmonton, and sometimes we'd
Mm,
take a detour through Athabasca. So
yeah.
Smith is in that area. Okay.
Yeah. So historically speaking, back in the fur trade days, etc., you had to go from Edmonton up the Athabasca Landing Trail, which is
Yeah.
still open in parts for people to explore. And then you got to Athabasca, and you could either go farther north along the Peace River Trail, which is now a multi use trail, or you went upriver by boat and went to what they called at that time Mirror Landing,
Yeah.
and now it's Smith on the opposite side of the river. So it went from
Okay.
a steamboat town to a railway town, and beautiful, beautiful area.
So is it kind of like a, excuse me, like a trading post where people would kind of stay over, get some
Um,
provisions, and move on their trip, or?
yeah, but it was more than a trading post because there were 30 or 40 businesses
Yeah.
in 1906. Like it was a big happening place in 1906. Like I said, to go north, you had to stop at Mirror Landing.
Okay.
So yeah. So, between the bootleggers and the boatmen, and, there's some pretty cool stories in there. I met one lady. Actually, one lady gave me her mother was, can't remember if it's her mother or grandmother, was a 3-year-old toddler when their family moved from Sweden to Mirror Landing. And
Wow.
so I went to Vancouver Island actually and picked up artifacts that she could document as having been there. So I have a steamer trunk that came from Switzerland that went to Mirror Landing. I have 96 pieces of silverware with crests on them
Yeah.
and textiles and all sorts of stuff. So, anyways, the story of that was the husband left for a while when the railway town in Mirror Landing started to die. So the mother was quite destitute, we'll put it that way. And she went to sell a fur coat to the ladies who worked in the houses of ill repute. In other words, a prostitute. And this lovely woman gave her the money for the coat and gave her coat back and said, "No, you feed your kids." So there's an
Wow.
example of kind-heartedness from where you might not expect it. I
Yeah.
like that story. That was a short version, by the way.
Yeah. I was
So
there.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. No, I was just saying you
No,
said that was the short version of the story. So is there more that you wanted to share, or
no, that was yeah.
that was
Yeah,
kind
not
of
here.
it? So how did you come to meet that lady?
The Athabasca Archives.
Yeah.
She contacted the Athabasca Archives, and then they contacted me, and me and a friend ended up taking a trip to the island because there's another guy that I'm very, very interested in. Also, another book I'm writing. I think that's number 3 or 4 that will come out, and his name is James Cornwall or Peace River Jim. So this guy came to the area in the late 1890s. He was a trapper, a trader, spoke 6 indigenous languages, was
Wow.
very much friends with some of the men that would become chiefs later on. But the entrepreneuring spirit of this guy is just phenomenal. And he touched almost every bit of Alberta history. So I've already said the trappers or traders. If people go to Peace River, Alberta and see the 12-foot Davis gravesite,
Mm.
um, Cornwall, Davis actually died at Gruard, which was formerly known as Lesser Slave Lake Settlement. So Cornwall had promised him he would bury him on the Peace River. So he paid to have him transported across land to be buried where he wanted to be. Like, so even his friendship was good, right? Like he kept his promises. But
Yeah.
very few people know about him now, and I'm on, I don't know, 700 pages of research. Like, he dined with the King of Germany when there was one. Like, he's just a fascinating fellow, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna name it A Man Before His Time, because he
Yeah.
definitely was. I got a story. I think this is funny. So in 1899, Treaty 8 was signed at Lesser Slave Lake Settlement, or Sucker Creek First Nation, and Cornwall was there. He was friends with who would become Chief Moose Goose. But in 1905, there was a murder on Sucker Creek Reserve where two guys were um, going to partner. They're going to trap and pan gold and whatever. Well, one guy killed the other guy and burnt him on a really big fire. And it was the residents of Sucker Creek that alerted the RCMP to the fact that this guy had been done in, right? They're going through the ashes and they find bits of skulls and buttons and things. So I think it was 28, and I might be wrong on this. The government brought down twice all of these people from Sucker Creek to Edmonton to have the trial. And it's called the Charles King murder, and Edward Hayward was who was killed. But on one of those occasions, Cornwall took Chief Moose Tooth and some other people to the opera. Can you
Oh wow.
imagine? Like, they didn't even really speak English. Can you imagine them? Like, what a culture shock.
Yeah.
They're used to living like me, and off to the opera we go, right? I have to wonder what they thought of that. But anyways, I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I think it'd be interesting. I think it'd be a nice evening, honestly. I'd love to go to the opera myself. But yeah, for them it might have been such a different world. Yeah.
yeah, and like not even just the opera, but being in a city.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I know today, if I go to Edmonton to do shopping or whatever, I can't wait. I I feel fenced in. Like, I get real antsy, after a while. I think the
Yeah.
worst thing I ever did to somebody was in Christmas. I had this lady behind me. She kept bumping me with her cart, and I asked
Oh,
her a couple of times not to back up, and that didn't work very well. So I finally
yeah.
ended up backing her up myself. That was awful. I felt guilty for a long time.
No, I feel
But
yeah,
there.
I was the same. I was never a big fan of Edmonton, like West Edmonton Mall, the crowds or just the traffic. Like
No.
it gave me anxiety. Like I just wanted to break free and
Mm.
run away. Right? You
Yeah,
feel
well,
too kind of hoarded in, too crowded.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's and I think it's because you're so used to just being able to go outside and walk wherever you want to, that you're just not used to all that extra people energy around, right?
Yeah, probably. The all these stories that you're telling me about, like, are these stories you've written about or you're planning on writing about, or are these just stories that you know of? Because you're very good. You got like
Oh,
specific dates and locations and everything. You're just nailing those.
not bad
Yeah,
for someone with a brain injury.
that's what I mean,
Um,
right?
yeah, and it's funny because some of that stuff will stick in like glue, and
Yeah,
other things I don't have a clue. Like, it's not even remotely there anymore. And
yeah,
what it is, the brain is an interesting thing. By
yeah.
the way, you're gonna have to say the name, but it starts with a P and it has to do with mushrooms.
Psilocybin?
Psych, that's it. Did it
Yeah,
start with a P? Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So I was discussing you and mushrooms with my sister the other day,
yeah.
and she has an acquaintance that has some some challenges with schizophrenia and things.
Okay.
And apparently one of somehow or another, and I would never expect her to know this, by the way. Um, she she actually says that it has good results. So yeah, I thought that was
For
a.
schizophrenia. Okay.
I
I
don't know
have
if
to look a little bit into that.
schizophrenia so much.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was schizophrenia so much, but she had heard of it being used for mental health problems and with good success. So, and I
Yeah.
liked what you just shared recently about that guy explaining things. He was someone from down south of the border. They had you shared a news article or something where
You know,
20% after 12 weeks had reduced stress or depression
yeah.
still after 25 milligrams, I think it was. See,
Yeah.
these are the bits that kind of I know what I'm talking about, but I haven't got a clue what the figures are because I can't remember them.
Yeah, and a lot
Yeah,
of times, you read a lot of different research, a lot of different papers, and the numbers will vary depending on who's putting out the data. But yeah, there
yeah,
definitely seems to be benefits to mental health, and I'm gonna have Dan Carcillo on next week. Hopefully, I've said that twice already,
good.
but I think next week is gonna happen. And Dan Carcillo was a hockey player. He was an enforcer, and he got into like so many fights that he had 7 diagnosed concussions, and he figures probably over 100 undiagnosed. And
Yeah.
yeah, that led to him to having like slurred speech, uh, hard time remembering things, prone to anger and violence and things like that. And through psychedelics, he was able to heal his brain, and now he's a big advocate for using psychedelics to deal with traumatic brain injuries. um
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's not something that I'm personally well versed in. It's not something I'm too knowledgeable about, but I want to have him on so he can talk about these things, because yeah, there seems to be benefits for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be very interesting. Speaking of natural, because that's what I would call that. It would be a natural remedy.
Yeah.
Uh, most people think, oh, drugs you used to buy on the street, but I mean, it grew naturally, right?
Yeah.
Um, Living out here on 100 acres, I personally believe that whomever created Earth probably put whatever you needed to heal within a 2-day walk of you. That's my personal belief. So when you're cold, my husband is also getting a cold or a chest infection or something. So I went out and I didn't went out. I went to my cupboard and got my little stash of rat root, which is an indigenous remedy.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say the word remedy? It's what the indigenous people
Yes.
use for colds and respiratory stuff. So he sounds better today than he did yesterday after one cup of tea. But
Yeah. what
and,
what
and
was
it
that?
didn't work. It's called rat root. That's what we
rat
call it up here. I have no idea what
rat
its
rat
scientific name
root.
is. Rat
Okay.
root. Yeah. And then
Rat
there's
root.
yeah. And then um, we collect it whenever we see it and need it because we won't take it until we do. Chaga. I have
Yeah.
my own hand-picked chaga. So, and the way I do it is I do it in my crock pot with depending on what size of how much water I'm putting in, with cinnamon and cloves. With cinnamon and cloves, so that, and then I just put it in, those picnic jugs with little tap on the bottom. I
Yeah.
just go by with my shot glass and whoop, 2 or 3 times a day, and that's how I take chaga.
And
I
what's
notice
chaga
it.
good for?
Uh, ton of stuff. If you read things, I got a cough. Excuse me. Um, but I like it for anti-inflammatory, and I honestly think when I remember to take my chaga on a regular basis, my brain injury symptoms lessen.
Oh, okay. You feel like
That
you just
that's my.
function better?
I think I function better, and I think I
Yeah.
have less headaches. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I know
because I
lion's
live.
mane is another big one for that. Lion's mane is big for cognitive health.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
So
think
you think what?
I was gonna say I think turkey tail is good as well for like your autoimmune system and things like that. So I don't know if you're
Mm-hmm.
familiar with turkey tail. Yeah, there's so
I've never
many
heard.
mushrooms out there, and they all have so many benefits. I'm just kind of starting to learn about them. And yeah, like you're saying, I feel like there is, for every ailment that we can have, there's probably a cure out there that's natural that we can just find in nature. It's just, I feel like we've lost that connection with the earth. And there's also
Yeah.
hazardous things. So I personally don't want to go out in the woods and just start picking stuff and putting stuff in my mouth, because
No.
not everything out there is good for you. But I do believe there's
Yeah.
a lot of good out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was, those were the knowledge things that used to be passed down, and then they didn't, unless you're in a specific group of people that are still. I like that people are relearning it, because even
Yeah.
um aspirin, if I've got this right, and I don't know, was made because there's aspirin in willow bark.
Mm.
So, boil yourself a cup of willow bark tea and you feel better. And somehow someone got a hold of that and commercialized it, I think.
Yeah, they can isolate, the ingredients or whatever
Yeah.
that actually cures your headache. But
Yeah.
there's no money to be made in telling somebody to go, gather mushrooms or branches out in the forest and you'll feel better. It's all about, well, this
Yeah.
is your cure for your headache. This is your cure for your foot fungus. This is your cure for, they have a cure for everything, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And most of it very costly. So my sister is a registered nurse, and we're very much uh old school people, I guess. I mean, we're 45 minutes from the nearest hospital at a regular rate of speed. So anyways, my husband's cut his thumb, like smack down the middle, on
Yeah.
his saw, on his table saw. Bring him inside and wash it out and butterfly bandage it. And he actually said for the one he got stitched up, he can still feel the one that I did, but he can't feel the one he got done at the hospital. And my
Lost the
sister, the
nerves.
nurse, yeah, my sister, the RN, says, "You guys are gonna die of sepsis someday." We're like, no, I don't think so. That's terrible.
Because you're
Mm.
doing your own medicine, because you're
Yeah.
looking after each other. I think it's good that you
Yeah.
know what you have to do. You live in the bush, you can't always rely on hospitals and doctors. Like even me, like I don't live out in the bush like you do. I live in a small town of 5,000, but even our hospital
Yeah.
here has limitations, and sometimes we have to travel out of town just for like a serious infection or something like that. So
Yeah.
having the knowledge to at least drink something or take something that helps the symptoms so that you can seek help, that'd be beneficial. I don't have that
Yeah.
knowledge.
Or stop the bleeding or do whatever. And I'm not a panicker, so that probably happens. Like, I've never been anyone to panic. I got a funny story to tell you. So here we are. Um, I was in grade 10, so way, way long ago. And I was going to a Christian college in Weyburn, Saskatchewan. And the hockey team and the basketball team were essentially the same people because, small school. So we went to a basketball game, and then the hockey players got on uh, like a van, like a cargo, not a cargo van, like a minivan sort of, to go get to their hockey game. Well, they went around a corner. They went around a corner and slid on the ice and rolled that van, and there were people everywhere hurt. Right? We come up with the school bus behind them. Anyways, we're all out there trying to do our first aid or whatever. But I had a friend, and she has, and I always get this wrong, spinal I keep trying to call it spinal diphtheria, but I know that's wrong.
Little
Spinal
bifida.
bifida. So she was in a
Mhm.
wheelchair, and I was with her in the bus, and this guy just kind of comes wandering in. His name was Garth, and he had a huge head gash, right? Well, I'm looking around, and what do you get? Like, there's nothing on the bus to staunch the blood with. So I just turned around, whipped off my coat, whipped off my shirt, threw my coat back on, and crammed my shirt to his head, right? So later on, we were in our devotional or whatever chapel that we did every day. And Gar says, I can guarantee you Sheila Willis will absolutely take the shirt off her back to help somebody.
Well, that's the thought that was going through my head while you were telling the story. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. So
So you didn't even
I guess proof
hesitate, eh? You just saw something had
no.
to be done, and you're like, "This guy needs to stop the bleeding." So
Yeah,
yeah,
what's around? What's dirt? Right? There it is.
yeah,
Yeah, you didn't want to get the oil laden rags down there by the floor by the door. Yeah, that wouldn't have been good. So
yeah,
and I'm very much my whole family is like that, but me especially, and that's why I created this app. It's like up there.
yeah.
Um, First of all, it wasn't just me that thought of this. It was a group of people that were historians or interested in history of tourism.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're way back in 10 years ago in 2015 when there wasn't a lot of online. Things weren't as easy to use as they are now. And in Athabasca, and you've probably seen the Athabasca train station, it's a beautiful old building,
Mhm.
but you didn't know it was there until you stumbled over it. Like you're driving along and poof, and there's no story attached to it or anything. So this is right after I did the geocaching tour, and I thought, I know I can put these things on a map based on their GPS coordinates, add some pictures, and tell a story. So that's kind of where it started, right?
Yeah.
And northern Alberta, there's some things that annoy me, so I'm going to try and be really polite here. Northern Alberta does not get the necessary exposure that places like Banff, Jasper, Southern Alberta does, right? So when I
Yeah.
first started this, it was basically Northern Alberta, and it was just a history app. But then talking to people, and you learn by having conversations, right? I had some people from Edmonton that figured about the time they left the city limits, there was no services for, I don't know, 1,000 kilometers, and the bears were going to eat them if they got more than 100 kilometers away, right? Like their
Jeez.
perception of rural Alberta was absolutely 100% different from mine. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And that's when we started putting on the travel services. And I'll tell you, shortly after I released the first version for Northern Alberta in 2017, I did it in less than 1,000 days. Had 300 communities on it, and I just actually read this today because I'm doing my awards thing. 1,500 points of interest or site services on it in 1,000 days.
And you're saying that's
So
mostly Northern Alberta or all of Alberta now?
at that point in time, it was Northern Alberta.
Right.
So when this thing went live, then pretty soon Southern Alberta is going like, when are we getting on? So in 2019, I made it the entire province. So
Yeah.
really, what I've created is a single app, and it's searchable. So you have all these points sorted by category and by community. So you'll see a pinpoint of a community, and it'll open up a menu, or you can hit near me and see what's around you. And every one of those opens something that you can see pictures, read about it, hit a button and dial the number, visit their website. You can also hit a button and visit all the local links. So if you were in a hotel room somewhere, bored out of your tree, you could hit that and hit a community calendar, we hope, and find out if you're going to go play bingo at the Legion or go swimming or darts or whatever. Like what's going on in that community you can participate in, right?
Huh.
Without ever it's all just three clicks.
Yeah.
So, but then if you wanted, a lot of people like to go see big icons or historic grain elevators, search them, and you'll have where you are and a map of all of them.
Yeah.
So really, a brewery tour, I can do big icon tour, I can see all the museums. But as we develop this cooperative business idea, which by the way, in a cooperative business, our members are our owners. So at the end of our first, we have 18 months to hold our first AGM, and we'll be putting things out to vote. So they're really directing how this whole business works out. And I think that's cool because where else do you have a voice, right?
Yeah.
I can tell you from experience that some of the standard tourism organizations are interested in their voice and not yours. And we literally changed that with our business model.
So
So
do you have like a do you have a board?
yes, I
Yeah.
have we started with 3 founding members and myself. So every Friday morning we meet and go over the business of the week, or as I'm because we're rebranding it used to be called History Check and now it's Traveling On. So we got to go through the rebrand process. It's not online until spring. So we got to do all that background work and things like, okay, not everybody has heard of us before, yet I have um, hundreds or 1,000 restaurants in this thing that don't even know who we are. So do we just remove them or do we leave them in? We're
Mm,
choosing to leave them in. But to say like they're not a member, but we've left it here for user convenience. So
okay.
hopefully when users can go there, they'll say, "Hey, did you know I found you on this app?" Right?
Yeah.
And then it's forward. But the other thing about the app is you can take selfies and comments. So you can literally start conversations with on this thing
So you
or
can
leave
like
your
post saying, "Hey, I was here. I visited this landmark. Here I am." And
yeah, here I
that's
am,
cool.
and you can share it on social media.
I like
So
that.
yeah,
I was out of town just a couple weeks ago, and on the highway I could see all these heritage sites, and I was thinking to myself, man, it'd be cool one day to go on a trip and just stop at every one of these sites and read the little description and kind of take a minute
yeah,
to appreciate the scenery and what used to happen here. Sounds like your app could be a great tool for that.
absolutely.
And
And
if I don't get to visit every single place, then I can still look it up and through
yeah,
the app, right? Yeah.
so and it's even a way to tie. It's not just, oh, look at that cool barn on the corner. What does it have anything about that, right? There's a brick house on the way from Westlock to the Yellowhead Highway. I really want to
Mm.
know the history of that house. I haven't found it yet, but anyways, I would be pulling over and reading that, but I can also tie bits of history together. Have you ever heard of Wat May the bush pilot? Yeah.
No.
Okay. So Wat May he actually fought the Red Baron in the war.
Mm,
So
okay, yeah,
um but he was from Edmonton and he was a bush pilot. And in 1929 up in Fort Vermilion, they had a diphtheria outbreak. And Wat May and Vic Horner, and I think it was like 30 below in an open cockpit plane, wrapped up this vaccine. Vaccine is not the correct word, but that medical stuff that's going to quit it from spreading. Um,
an antidote,
and
maybe?
yeah,
No?
something. And
Something, yeah.
yeah, it might have been a vaccine. So, anyways, they were just seems like vaccine is long term and this was immediate. That's what's got me
Okay,
confused.
okay.
Um, Wrapped it up in a blanket and a heater and headed for Fort Vermilion in
Mm.
a 2-seater open cockpit plane at 40 below. Like, hello,
Yeah,
nobody can tell me they didn't make them tougher back then, right?
right.
So I have taken that trip because they made 5 stops. The first stop was actually on Lesser Slave River by my house because the heater started the blanket on fire. So they had to land the plane, throw out the heater and the blanket, and they put these vials in all of their warm spots.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in their
To keep
underwear,
them keep them
right?
from freezing, yeah.
To keep them from freezing.
Yeah, but,
And
I'm
so,
sure whoever got it was more concerned about getting the remedy than where it was kept warm, right?
yeah, I'm pretty sure they could have cared less at that
Yeah.
point. So on my app, if I search Wat May Mercy Flight, because that's what it's known as, it will literally provide you with a map of where he stopped and archival photos of all that.
Well,
And
that's really
what's
cool.
really cool is there's a website called the Wat May Chronicles. So I don't have to tell the whole story. I just do a little intro of why he was at that spot, and then they can click right into the story on Wat May's website.
Wow.
Isn't that
Sounds
neat?
like there's Yeah, that's great. It sounds like there's a lot of information packed into this app. Like, is this
Oh
app available right now?
no, it'll be available in the spring. But I
Oh, in
do
the
have,
spring.
if you go to ingon.ca,
Yeah,
ingon.ca, there's a form there where you can just
sure.
register to be notified.
Yeah.
Where? Oh, yeah,
No, I was just
up
pointing right
there, up
above you.
there.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, yeah. There's a form there that you can be registered when we're done, when it's ready to download. Because
Okay.
we're doing changes and tweaking, and obviously we got to brand it and upgrade it, and yeah, it's going to be probably when we get. I like we're already started, But when we get into it with the app developers, it's
Yeah.
going to be probably 3 weeks straight on, head on, me doing 16-hour days.
Just entering information.
Reviewing what they've done and picking through it
Ah,
with a fine comb to make
right.
sure no typos. This is where I want it. This link works. Blah blah blah. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll be totally half brain at that point in time. So, um, yeah, I've even had one guy, and this is early on. I don't even think the Alberta wide version was available. We became friends. He's my friend now. He used the app and walked to his grandmother's grave, which was out in the bush somewhere,
Yeah.
because her name was in there. He searched her name and went right to her grave site. He found the site where the burial place was, and there he went.
Wow. That
Like,
seems like very in depth. A lot of
yeah, it's
information.
and it's not as it's in depth, but really it's bits of information put together in an interesting way. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So eventually, because if I was to go visit you and I'm in a hotel, I'm going to go looking for cheesecake. I love cheesecake. I probably
Yeah.
love cheesecake about as little as Rubio likes poutine. So
He
I'm
hates
going to be up.
poutine. Yeah.
I know, and I love cheesecake. Yeah, different sides of the scale.
Yeah.
So as we get more businesses on, our big advertising feature is keywords. So when you go
Yeah.
on and do an online search, you're looking for something, but the results you get are analytically driven, like they're algorithms or whatever. When we're doing this on the app, those keywords are actually given by the businesses. So when I search cheesecake to find out where I can go get a piece of cheesecake, it's going to be right because
Because
that
the
business
owner
added it.
is the one who says, I have cheesecake at my restaurant. It's not
Yeah,
like an algorithm, like you said, that just threw it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's honest to good true. If you want fish and chips or steak and lobster, surf and turf, or air for your tires or
So
whatever,
this is
the
turning into
service
like
recommendation.
like very versatile tool because you can use it for traveling for
Yes.
history, but you can use it literally like if you're just wanting to enjoy a good piece of cheesecake. Where's the best
Yep.
cheesecake in? Yeah. So
Yeah. It's very, very versatile. I have
yeah,
to tell you, I'm brilliant. I had a, it took me a long time to embrace the fact because I'm just, okay, there's a problem, let's fix it kind of person, right?
yeah,
I don't think a lot about what I've really done in terms of how other people view that. I
yeah,
just my life. Yeah, it's fun. I'm having fun. And that's kind of my attitude. But then you whip it out and you start saying, yeah, in 2018, I got an Outstanding Achievement Award for Heritage Awareness. Um, and in 2019, I got the Marketing Award for Travel Rural Tourism. Both of those are provincial awards. And then I was shortlisted for the Governor General's Award in Community Programming, and that's federal. So I was top
yeah.
10 in Canada. Like, and you start rattling them off, and you're thinking, me? Right?
Because those were never things that you set out to do, right? Those are just kind of
No,
like the outcome of what you've been passionate about.
yeah, I didn't.
You're just doing your thing, and then this is the kind of
I'm
like the
just
fruit of your labor, right?
like this.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just out there doing my thing, and my results are, how do I say this? The results that I look for are my friend Andy walking to his grandmother's grave, and that was personally important to him.
mhm,
Those are the results I want to see, not this. And I should have brought it up. These beautiful little, actually, they're signed by artists, by the way. Like, could be worth something. My awards.
yeah,
Um, and the guy that was coming down from Fort Mac and used the app to find some remote gas station, and the owner opened up for him so he wouldn't get stuck on the side of the road.
yeah,
That's what I want to do.
yeah, yeah.
It's
That,
just
like one
like
of
I'm
my
opening up it's a hospitality window for Alberta. That's really how I view it.
yeah. Well, I'm like, yeah, I see a lot of benefits in this. Are you ever planning? Like, I know it's still early on in the game here, but are you looking at maybe in the future expanding it beyond Alberta, Canada wide?
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to tell you the story of this. Okay. So when we first did this in 2015, we formed, me and that group of people formed a nonprofit to operate this thing, right? It was
Yep.
never about it was never about getting rich. It was about providing a service, okay? Well, we couldn't get grants and there was no funding available and I'm out there busting my butt trying to do too many things at once. And even then I got it launched in 1,000 days. So after several years of this, not grabbing a paycheck, um, the guy that helped me technically, the nonprofit closed down and gave us the rights to the app. Okay, so we were working together, and then COVID hit, and my partner had a horrendous time. Like he pretty well lost everything that he owned. It was
Mm.
awful. So he signed the rights over to me um probably 2 years ago. Now, you're going to see if you followed my stuff, there's like all sorts of activity and then there's this lull. And during that lull is when this stuff is going on. And I honestly had to consider I'm over 60 years old now, or at least I think I am. I was born in 1962. Um, and my family likes what I'm doing, but they would never ever be heavily involved in it. Right? This is my gig, not their gig. So
Mm.
if I form a business to operate this thing, it's not serving anyone but me. Does that make sense? So I really, really looked at how I could set it up that if I happen to kick the bucket, this thing's going to live beyond me because I think it's well worth it. We got bad lighting here all of a sudden. Um, and and how could I do it to to ensure that it served the people that I created it for?
Right.
And I'm in the shower and thinking, there's got to be some way we can all work cooperatively together. Ting ting. So I get out and get dressed and start searching cooperatives. There is a fantastic place called Cooperatives First out of Saskatchewan. And
Mm.
that business plan is ideal for why we built this app.
Hmm.
Like 100%. Members own it. They get a say in how things go forward. They they potentially get dividends
Yeah.
if the business does well. And plus, we built right into it that we're going to have a members assistance fund and a project assistance fund. Here's my I'm going to be polite factor. You would think that if someone built an Alberta wide travel app that included heritage and had 4,000 sites on it with 3,000 downloads driven by one person, that the major travel organization for the province might be interested. Would you not assume that? And they're
Like
not.
like Tourism
I'm
Alberta, is that what you mean?
I'm, I'm not saying no names.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, not a dime, nothing. And yet recently there and okay, I've already told you this has breweries and farmers markets and museums and hundreds of different sectors, I'll call them, on it.
Yeah.
I just on Facebook learned last week that there is now an Ales Trails app, so you can go around visiting breweries, and they got a
Oh,
$500,000 for it.
oh
You want to
wow.
know how much money I've raised up until the traveling, up until the cooperative, prior to the cooperative? I built
Um,
this thing and kept it running for less than $300,000.
wow.
Like, and I have everything on mine. Like that's
Yeah.
very disappointing how that worked out. So it's a I'm selling this app to the cooperative, and part of that sale is you're going to have a project assistance fund. So when people like me come along, they might be able to get some help because it's good for the
Yeah.
cooperative. So yeah, there was my putting my foot down. Can you
Wow.
see me all right? Like,
You're
what if I
getting
do?
darker. I don't know if it's getting darker outside, but it's all good.
No,
There you go.
here.
You
Okay.
got it.
No, I
But
have
yeah,
the
running an
video.
app like that, there must be some sort of cost to maintain it, right? So you got to bring
Yeah.
in some funds. You can't just do it
Yeah.
entirely out of the goodness of your heart, because you need to be able to support yourself, right?
Well, and with this cooperative plan, there's a $25 lifetime membership.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, but the membership is open to any business, individual, or other entity with interested in the tourism or heritage industries. So not only the app user can become a member and maybe get business specials offered by our business members, but
Yeah.
it's the businesses. So you've got that generated income, but it's a one-time shot, right? And that gives you the voting and everything. Um, but it's gonna knock your socks off. For $250 a year, we're
Hmm.
gonna put you on the app with 3 images, your logo, full-blown description, whatever, and 10 keywords, the cheesecake words.
Yeah.
And we only need 3,000 advertising members in 1 year. And just as a side note, there's over 10,000 restaurants in Alberta. Doesn't count all the rest of them. So we only need 3,000 advertisings a year for a $500,000 budget.
Yeah. And you
Where do you
feel
get
that's more
advertising?
than,
Yeah,
yeah, $250 a year for advertising is pretty good on an app. Yeah,
yeah.
that's an
So,
unbeatable deal.
so I'm going to back up because you asked me if we're expanding. When
Yeah.
we incorporated our cooperative, we incorporated federally. So yes, Alberta is the first chapter. We can go across Canada, and our board meeting notes say when we're ready, our federal cooperative will be the first chapter of an international cooperative.
Nice. Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential in this. Have you
Yeah.
connected with anybody from outside of Alberta who's either got like a similar idea as you, or they're working on a similar project? That you guys kind of just come together and unite forces?
Um, yes, and yes, I've contacted people outside of Alberta, but I haven't found anyone with a project of this magnitude.
So you're leading the path, and you're leading the way.
Yeah, we're cutting edge. Not
Yeah.
only in the app itself, but even the cooperative model. Like I can tell you at the conference I just went to, when you start talking about a business cooperative and what that meant,
Yeah.
that was just as interesting to people as the app was. So
Yeah.
yeah, cutting edge. Here we go. Let's rock this thing, right? So
So
yeah,
what's
I
the
have no
next step for you then with
um
this?
I after we get the app reloaded, I will always be involved in this because I like it. It's my baby.
Yeah.
But really, I would like to get.
Oh, I lost you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back.
There you are.
Yeah.
Sorry about
I
that.
lost you at "It's
Now I
your
can't hear you.
baby."
Now I can hear you. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you were saying how
I
the
lost
it's
you for a
your
minute.
baby. It's your baby. The project's your
Yeah.
baby.
The project is my baby, and I've got a lot of creative ideas. Like I would like to add audio to the app. Actually, we already kind of got it set up that it will eventually do that. So if you were going into the app and you said you had an interest in, I don't know, fur trade history or trading posts or something, then it would be coming to a spot by GPS and say, I don't know, you're approaching Fort Fork. Would you like to hear the story, or would you like directions on how to get there?
I like that. That's
Like,
kinda like a guided
yeah,
museum tour, but out and about in
yeah,
the world.
basically,
Yeah.
yeah. Try to get the current foundation up. So I will always, um, my brain has all these things that it can do in it, um, and to develop those. So the everyday things. I really like visiting with people, so I'll never quit doing that. But I'll probably be like your annoying mother-in-law or something, hovering all these people trying to do their jobs. But I will let it go and focus more on history because history is truly my passion. I like to tell stories, and if I
Yeah.
can put them on a map, like the Watt May story, if I can put them on a map and have people follow along and get right interested, think of the kids, right?
Yeah.
We don't we don't- I just read this horrific statistic that there's more and more people that think that the Holocaust was over wasn't as bad as they say it was essentially the gist of what I got out of it. And I'm thinking we can't lose that history. So even on a day-to-day level going through Alberta, like my first book, which is you can find it on libertymultimedia.com or Amazon. I took these newspaper articles and I transcribed them all, and they're from 1880 to 1896. They're all the Edmonton Bulletin that reference Slave Lake. So that could be Lesser Slave Lake Settlement, the river, the trail, whatever. And I put them all together, and then I indexed them,
Yeah.
and and then I made themes out of them. So in doing that, in that particular one for the indigenous people, it was right when the missionaries were coming and they were plucking children off the shoreline and people were dying of starvation and disease and whatever, right?
Hmm.
So, but then in 97, 98, which is my next book I'm trying to get out the door, it was different because it was the Klondike Gold Rush, and the focus of that one in regards to the indigenous people was how much they helped the the prospectors. They were
Hmm.
telling them where to camp. They were telling them where people were. Like they were like this regular little telegraph service that if you were looking for someone, they pretty well knew where they were. Or
Hmm.
don't go there because this happens or whatever, right? It
Yeah.
it's it's just interesting how the whole thing changed in the theme. And then the next one will be the signing of Treaty 8, 1899 to hopefully 1901, because that's when they started doing the reserves. So in my area, even though I live in Treaty 6, I identify as Treaty 8 is what I like to say, but we have a very high indigenous population and there's still that big divide. And can we, by documenting some of that history, and both indigenous and non-indigenous, anybody that settled here for a long number of years, I found places on certain occasions where um, a non-indigenous ancestor and an indigenous ancestor were working together in things. So let's learn from that, right?
Hmm. So you mean they
That's
were
my
like related, but they didn't have any idea that they were related? Is that what you're saying?
no. I'm saying that maybe this guy had a farm, but he credits this guy for I don't know
Oh,
raising his barn or whatever,
gotcha.
right?
Gotcha.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's plenty of examples that we somehow lost along the way of where everybody worked together almost for a common theme, right?
Yeah.
And then yeah, we won't go into that. That's a long conversation.
Do you get a lot of your book ideas from stories that you get through the app, or are they kind of two separate things
No, opposite. I get a lot of my stories for the app from my book research.
from your book research?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got
Any plan? I was gonna say, any plans on ever making that connection? That the people that get the app, they say, "Oh, if you want more information, I have this book." You know what I mean? Like kind of like a
yeah,
little promotion.
on the website maybe. Like our website ingon.ca is still connected. Hey, do you know why that's is that? Have you
What's
ever
that?
looked at our name? Traveling on. Get your Ingon in Alberta. Camping, fishing, hunting, hiking, dancing, eating.
Ah, I did wonder why. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, fishing,
Yeah.
camping. Yeah.
So as I'm progressing, I used to say, "Oh, have you got your traveling on tourism cooperative membership?" And now it's like, "Hey, you got your Ingon membership yet?" Like sooner or later, people are all going to know what an Ingon is. And we're even
Yeah.
doing a little avatar. I'm kind of working on an avatar, and he'll be the map guy.
That would be the like the mascot for the for
Yeah,
your
yeah,
brand.
yeah. So funny.
Sounds like you've got a lot on the go though, and you're close to having it kind of materialize though. You said a couple more months, like in the spring, you figure?
Yeah. So I
Any
did
any
it.
hurdles?
Um, the biggest hurdle is getting all the financing in place. That's
Yeah.
it. And once that's done, And right now we're actually talking to the coding company that I've dealt with right back from the beginning, and we're getting the estimate in. Like,
Yeah.
okay, when we do this, how much is this going to cost us? So got that all. And what's your updated price? So, um, yeah, I'm excited, but it's just another outlet. I like
So
to be
what's one
creative.
what's one of the best ways people can support you if they want to, like, if they're interested in your idea here? Is it just to become a member and pay that
Yeah,
$25 and
that yeah, once in a lifetime thing. And so having said that, because you asked about expanding across Canada. So if you're a
yeah,
$25 member, I feel like a salesperson. I want to tell stories. Um, if you're a $25 member, we have business members that are offering specials to fellow members. So online right now at the website /members, Uncle Mike's Outdoors and More. He's an online shopping store for outdoor gear,
yeah,
and he's paying 10% off if with a code that only members get, with a promo code for members. So
okay,
that's pretty well. There's a few more in there, but when we go into BC, it doesn't matter where you got your membership card. It's going to follow you throughout all the provinces.
yeah,
So you could
yeah,
go literally across Canada and get some of those special member deals.
yeah.
And I mean, good for you, but it's also good for that business because you're going there because you're an Ingon member, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of making me think of like those AMA memberships. I mean, I'm signed up with
Yeah,
AMA, but if I go to Subway, I might get like 10% off a sub or whatever just because I'm an
yeah,
AMA member. So it's a perk for the
yeah.
members and it's kind of advertising for the businesses. And yeah, it's a good system. I
Good
like it.
fit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
You said you like to tell stories. Do you have a resilience stories or anything like that you want to share with us before we wrap up? It could
resilience.
be
Hola. Boy, am I ever resilient.
That could
Okay.
be you, could
So,
be like from one of your stories in your book, whatever.
um, I'm going to tell you my story because I've already alluded to the fact that I have a brain injury.
Yeah.
Um, and so I got whacked on the head with a baseball bat in the 80s when I was a younger person, and I went into a house party and somebody thought I was somebody else and hit me, right? And I don't remember blacking out, but it was, and I don't remember exactly when it was, but there was snow on the ground, and it was either Christmas or Thanksgiving, because by the time I came around after I got home, my turkey that I had taken out for a lovely turkey dinner was stinking on the counter. That's how long, however long that takes is however long I was out for.
Wow.
So I was never, I don't remember ever going to the doctor when I was a child. Okay, it's kind of why I take care of Mel's hands. But anyway, so it was probably about a week later that I went in to the doctor, and more just to get some painkillers than anything else. And he said, "Oh, you should get a head X-ray. Like you can literally, if people, you can put your fingers in the dent in my head, right?"
Jeez.
Um, and I didn't go. I just went home and took it easy for a while. So then I ran out of them ones and went back probably another month later. And he made his nurse walk me up Jasper Avenue to get an X-ray of my head. And for years, I thought I had a hairline fracture of the skull. Okay.
Yep.
So time goes on. I have headaches. Whatever. And it was probably roughly a dozen years ago. And one of my things is I have no idea of time. It's probably why it lets me 10 years on this app, is because it feels like yesterday I started, right? Like, who cares?
Yeah.
So type away, carry on. So I had through the years gone to my family doctor and said, I think I have Alzheimer's. Like, and I would ace the test. And it's like, oh, slow down. You're all right. Just take it easy. And then one summer, it was to the point that if I went to Edmonton to shop for my husband, I had to phone him and say, I'm looking at this. Did I buy that yet for you? And on occasion he would say, "You've already got that 4 times."
Yeah.
Okay, right? And it was awful. Like and we discussed me going to a home. It was that bad. Like if I get much worse than this, you don't need to be taking care of me. Just go put me in a care home and have a nice life, right? And and I'm going to my doctor saying I need to go see a neurologist. I've got this pain in my ear, my face is numb, and I can't remember nothing. No, no, you're fine. Just slow down, right? So my friend had a friend that was going to see a neuropsychiatrist, and they were at an appointment, and they said, "We're really concerned about our friend Sheila because," and gave my symptoms. And he said, "Get her in here as soon as possible." So they phoned right from there and got me an appointment. So I made 3 trips to Edmonton and found out that I have post-concussive syndrome. That
Okay.
is, and right around when they were diagnosing it for sports people. So this guy that you've got coming on, it's probably what he has in part, right? Um, and I have to tell you, once I figured out what it was, and one of the symptoms of this is you just can't sleep. Like we're all a bunch of insomniacs, but the best thing you can do for yourself is get a good night's sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that that year, weather is one of my factors. In that year, we were having lots of storms, but there was never a nice place between them. And I've always been affected by storms. So I was not getting that extra rest between one thunder shower and the next. So every time I just dropped down a little bit more, right? So until I got myself under control, I was hooped. I went to one doctor, and this is horrible. So this neurologist guy says I'm retiring, like I can't treat you, right? So I go to my doctor in Westlock, and I have like I literally today even. Okay, I'm supposed to see Guy at 2, and it's like I'm counting on my fingers to make sure I'm at this at the right time to set my alarm.
Yeah.
Like it's not there, right? So anyways, I was an hour and a half late for this doctor's appointment, and I go in there and he doesn't want to see me, and I'm crying because I'm very upset. I mean, this is challenging, right? And I need someone to give me the pill that they put me on. And this doctor says to me, "I'm no brain specialist, but I can tell you just need to see a psychiatrist."
Wow.
Really? And what really astounded me, and this is why you almost have to be your own advocate and be resilient, as I guess the point of this, I then went to my doctor that I used to have in Slave Lake, and I asked him to feel my head. You know, 1980 to what? We're 30, no, I don't know, 40 years later.
Yeah.
I asked the doctor to feel my head, and it was as like before, it was like, "Well, we'll have to treat you to migraines, there's no sin, whatever." And he hit that scar on my head, and his eyes just went boing. It was his moment. And he went, "You have a depressed fracture of the skull." And I went,
Wow.
"Oh, I thought it was a hairline fracture," right? Like, oh. And he's like, "Wow, like that changes everything." And I've been telling you this for 25 years.
Yeah.
And I don't get it. So having said all that, in resilience, I was feeling sorry for myself one day, and I was talking to my friend Lucy, and I said, I wonder what I would have been able to do if I hadn't had a brain injury. And she stopped and she looked at me and she said, "Sheila, has it ever occurred to you that maybe you can do what you do because of your brain injury?"
Hmm.
How's that for turning it around?
Yeah. 100%.
And being aware of yourself, because finding out what I had and what the symptoms are, and while I can't do much about it, I can do some things about it. Like I have a nap every day. I sleep for at least an hour and 15 minutes every day. And I went to a conference for 3 days. So the 2 days before and 2 days after, they were 2.5 hour naps. Like
Because you couldn't
really,
get your hour nap in those days, so you
because
made
I
up
would
for them.
I made
Yeah.
up 4 more either end of that so I could function throughout that event.
Yeah.
And I don't remember coming home. I honestly do not remember driving home
Yeah. Oh, it must have been
because I
nice after all these years though to finally have a doctor that was willing to listen to you and could kind of give you some guidance as to what was going on, right? Not just, oh, well, I think this, or just don't
and
overthink it. Go on.
and that doctor isn't even in my area anymore. But when he when he understood and felt the head, right?
Yeah.
Like what would have happened if 20 years ago I would have said, okay, you're telling me the fact that I have varicose veins in my ear and my face is numb and I got whacked on the head with a baseball bat are not related. Like, maybe you should just feel my head. What would have happened if I would have said, maybe you should just feel my head, right?
Yeah.
Never occurred to me. But when that doctor came back and I said, I'll write you a letter of all my symptoms. And when he came back for the second visit, he literally cried. He said, I went back through your entire chart, and I think I was going there for like 18 years. He said, you have been telling us this for 18 years, and we missed it every single time. I am so sorry. And I'm
Wow.
thinking, goodness, much about it anyway. So, like, get over it, right?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
terrible.
I mean, at least it's
It
nice
is
that
what
he
it is.
acknowledged it, you know?
Yeah, it was
Makes
very
you feel
lovely.
better, like you're not just suffering this alone and everybody else is kinda making you feel like maybe you're crazy or something, you know? Like, it's nice to get
Yeah,
that confirmation. Yeah.
absolutely, 100%. And the most liberating, for lack of a better word, was knowing that I have to take a nap as often as I can.
Yeah.
Like, and most of my friends and family now, I'm almost out of batteries. Um, my friends and family now get it. And I have people that will not phone me between 10 and 1 because somewhere in that stretch of time, I'll be sleeping.
Yeah. They know
And
that
first,
Sheila's nap time.
yeah, it's Sheila's nap time. And my husband, um, in the beginning, it was like, must be nice. And like, no, it is not nice that I have to take a nap because I am totally disrupting my day by going there and sleeping.
Right.
And, and, but it's no different than you taking I don't know, a heart pill or something, right? I just happen to have a nap and it takes longer than popping it.
Yeah.
So,
For me
yeah,
for me, something more relatable to me would be where I have ulcerative colitis, so I gotta use the bathroom more often than most people. Some
yeah,
people say, "Oh, I only go once every 2 days," and I'm like, "Well, that must be nice. I go like 3, 4 times a day," right? So but I mean, that's just
yeah.
we adapt. That's just what we have to
We
deal
adapt.
with. Exactly.
We're resilient, and knowledge is power. Not only in our cases physically, but right across the board. The more you can learn and learn off of people and learn from people or learn from life, the better off you are if you can put it into perspective of how you live. That's my resilience.
Yeah. Well, and
I'm
I think
lucky
you're
to
definitely
have.
I think
I have
absorbing
that.
all these history moments, you have to be learning from other people and kind of saying, it's not all that bad. People go through stuff and we can overcome,
Yeah,
that's history. That's why we're here, literally. That's how
that's
we've
why
made
we're
it this far. It's resilience.
here. And what we're doing today, 100 years from now, somebody might be looking at us saying that worked well or that didn't.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
So
Yeah,
it's cool.
it is
So I
cool.
barely touched the tip of the iceberg. You know what I got the other night, just to leave everybody with a visual?
Sure, let's go. I know you said your battery's
my
dying, so we'll
Yeah,
squeeze one
my
more
mom is
story in.
my mom is 84 years old, and
Yeah,
she's probably in better shape than I am. Like when we're walking somewhere, I have to hurry to keep up to her, and I'm a good walker. Like
yeah,
it's usually the other way around, right? So anyways, my mom's not very technological, and by the way, I didn't know what an app was until I built one, by the way. So anyways, I get this email from my mom and it's blank. And then I get another one and it's blank. And then I get an email, it's got pictures attached. And here's my mom with two raccoon black eyes and all
mm,
scraped up, and her face is red. And I'm like, oh my, right? It's
mm,
quarter to 10 at night. And I tell my husband, I gotta phone my mom. Like, what
yeah,
happened? And she's struggling, but here my poor mom, their driveway has a little slope on it. Well, not that much, like a little slope. She slipped on the ice, pulling the garbage can to take the garbage to the curb, and she caught herself, but the garbage can caught up to her and whacked her down, and she face planted. So my
Oh,
sister-in-law took her to the hospital. She did break her nose a little bit, like just a small crack, and she said, "Took me 84 years with 11 siblings, but I finally got my nose broken."
jeez.
And then she told my sister, um, "I meant to take the garbage out, but it took me out instead." So
So she's got a good sense of humor and a good spirit about it, at least. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's genetic, right? So yeah,
Roll with the punches. I mean, yeah.
yeah, be resilient. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was fun. I could sit
Yeah,
here
I
and talk
enjoyed
for the
this
next
too.
hour.
I enjoyed learning more about your app too. I'm probably, well, not probably, I will be signing up and making use of it when I'm in Alberta next time. And if it does make
Yeah,
it to BC eventually, I'll be excited for that too.
my personal goal, next not this summer. Obviously, we got to get Alberta all rocking and sorted. I would
Yeah.
like to, and I've already sent some messages to BC tourism people. I'd like to
Yeah.
do it within 2 years. Get it started
Cool.
next year and a year build it up because it's a big database, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to say just in case somebody out there is a business, we don't have this app live yet, but we want to make sure. And then when we do go live, we're going to be building up our customer base for a while, right? Or our advertiser base. So our first year, their annual fees, our first year ends on September 30th, 2026. So our first year is really like what, 18 months long.
Yeah.
So
So you're
that's a
saying is
nice.
they're getting a better bang for their buck.
Yeah. They are getting 2 summers. The first summer is set up, but their second summer is really when their advertising will pay. So that's the
Okay.
nice thing about being a cooperative and being a member orientated business is you're trying to give them the best shot, not drag every dollar out of them you can, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a great project that you've got going on, and I could see a lot of people taking advantage of that and getting a lot of benefit from it for sure.
I can't wait till I get to put more history on it.
Oh, there you go. So you'll have another book after that, or
Oh yeah, I have to get the three. Okay, so I have two the news reviews, like the follow up, volume 2, 3. I have my Cornwall book, but I'd also like to do a documentary on a guy by the name of Captain Shot. His real name was Louis Fosseneuve. I met a lot of his. I actually went to his um, descendants family reunion. I've been to a couple of family reunions of these old historic families. It's kind of cool. Anyways, if you followed the Athabasca River towards up north towards Fort McMurray downriver,
yeah?
um, there's a place called Grand Rapids, and it's a whole bunch of boulders. You should look up Grand Rapids Wilderness Adventures. They've got awesome photographs. It's just an amazing place. Um, I think they call them concentric boulders. It's like this geological wonder kind of thing. Anyways,
Okay.
so when they were taking the barges or scows downriver to Fort McMurray, these things are 18 feet wide, I think, and 40 feet long, and they're loaded with thousands of pounds of goods. And that's how they transported fur trade stuff, etc. So Louis Fosseneuve was one of these riverboat pilots, and he is the first guy to shoot the Grand Rapids. So what that meant in the Grand Rapids, once you see pictures of him, you'll understand what a feat this was. He had a loaded scow with 6 nuns on it. I think it was 1872, but I'm probably wrong on that date. And he went right over the Grand Rapids. What normally happened was they stopped at this island and portaged things across and got on it and rolled the boat over empty. And he just took out that step, right? So he
I'm
has
going right
pictures.
over.
Yeah, he's right. And there's cool pictures. So um he has a permanent display at the Royal Alberta Museum in Edmonton.
Okay.
And by the way, he was friends with Cornwall, the guy that I'm going to write the book on. But I would just love to do a book or a documentary on the Métis and the Indigenous riverboat men, because without them, the fur trade wouldn't have happened. Like,
Yeah.
and there's some real interesting characters in there, and Captain Shot is one of them. So
Well, just the name is pretty curious.
yeah.
Captain Shot.
Well, and I always thought it was because he shot the rapids, but
Yeah.
I think it was because he was a buffalo hunter and a crack shot.
Oh, a
So
hot shot.
yeah, the hot shot. So now some of the family are shots. Some have SHOT, some have two T's, and some are actual Fossanoofs. So just another example of where the name kind of splintered off, and you took whatever name you kind of felt like at the moment when you
Yeah.
got written on paper. Yeah, but
Yeah.
really interesting fellow. And I would love. I don't know where I have this. I'm trying to reload everything into one YouTube account because I get sidetracked. I was up at Fort McMurray Métis and they were building one of these scows, and
Oh.
I took a video of it, a two-part video. They're like, when you're looking at it, it was upside down and it doesn't look that big, but when you look at the underneath of it, you could probably put like three Volkswagens in that thing. They're
Wow.
huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then they take them up there and use them for lumber and carry on. Yeah. But yeah, that's another interesting fellow.
Yeah.
There's tons of stories. Hey, did you know that some pavement down in Edmonton one time, Cornwall brought it down from Fort McMurray? It was the asphalt tar
No, I didn't
sands.
know that. No, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
they shipped it down by boat, and I think they did 100-yard stretch of paving in Edmonton with that stuff as a test run.
Just like like just the tar, like the bitumen that they
Like
find.
the bit,
Oh,
that's how I gather it. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
like
Because I know that
sand oil.
I know they used to use that to patch kayaks and canoes and stuff like that
Yeah,
back in the day. But yeah,
yeah,
it might make a good asphalt too. I don't know.
yeah. Maybe add more sand or a little rock or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Interesting.
interesting.
You're full
Yeah.
of knowledge, Sheila. You know so many random things. Um, yeah,
Okay, we need a trivia day. We'll just call Sheila.
yeah. There you
Yeah,
go. Ask her anything. Just yeah, people can
yeah,
tune in and ask you a bunch of questions.
yeah. So that was fun.
All right. Yeah.
But I don't even, yeah. Have me on again. I got more to say.
Yeah, we'll have you back. I mean, we're running at an hour and 20 minutes. It's probably my longest episode so far.
Oh, really?
And
Oh, well, I better.
yeah, and I know you
I'm
mentioned that your battery's dying, so I don't want to just lose you.
no,
So,
no. We better go like,
well, yeah,
or
we'll
I better
wrap
go.
things up. You've talked a lot about your app, so I'll make sure that in my show notes, I highlight the website and all that, talk
Yeah.
about that, and yeah, maybe some of your books. What are your book titles that you've got out right now?
Um, it's called uh, Lesser Slave Lake Region News and Reviews, 1880 to 1896.
And that's available for
Volume.
purchase now.
Yeah, you can find me on Amazon,
Okay.
or I find the easiest thing to do is go to libertymultimedia.com, because the link there, it's easier than searching on Amazon, because I'm not the only Sheila Willis in the world.
Oh,
Libertymultimedia.com. And
okay.
so every that I print will is done through there. So my second book has the same title except for it's volume 2, 1897 and 1898. And I really thought I would get that out last July, but it's the Klondike Gold Rush, and the index of that book is probably 3 times the index in the first book because of the hundreds and hundreds of Klondikers going through.
Yeah.
But I've gotten 2 of my quote unquote theme portions done. One of them is horses. The loss of horses by those people is absolutely astounding. And the first Klondike party going across the new trail they were building um, left 5 days after the road crew and then wondered why the road wasn't done.
Hmm.
100 miles of road. So horses were starving to death. They were overworked. It was just pitiful. But that's kind of part of a theme in that book of how all that occurred, and yeah, plus all of the other interesting newspaper articles in there. Because
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if anybody goes to newspaper.com, but you find some interesting stuff in there.
Newspaper,
Actually,
no, newspaper.com.
newspaper,
Is that like at old archives or what is that?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's an archive of old newspapers, yeah.
I don't
So,
know how many people know about it. I've never heard of it before. Be
so
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, and then there's another one, and they've kind of switched it. It's another newspaper article archives. I always find it by going to Peel's Prairie Provinces, and that's but they put it onto a new database. So yeah, there's all sorts of places you can find information
Yeah.
and interesting stories. And I'm last year for a year I had a magazine, so I'd pick a big story like um Nellie the Moose, the
Ah,
yeah, Nellie the Moose. Like this guy
yeah.
had a team of moose that he delivered mail with. So, but I'll get back to that after I get the app back online. Anyways, well, thank you very much for having me. This has just been fun.
Yeah, no, thanks for
Working.
coming on.
Yeah, working. I'm sorry I talk so much, but working alone at home sometimes just having good old fashioned chats is nice.
No, I enjoy it. It makes my job a lot easier when the person's got a lot to say. So I enjoyed hearing all your stories and about this app. I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on it and trying it out for myself. So
Right on.
yeah.
So,
Okay,
well, you have
Sheila.
an excellent day and see if you can go find yourself some rat root or mint or echinacea for your cold.
Yeah, I'll look into that for sure. Thank you.
Okay, you have
Okay.
a great day.
You too. Take care.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.